Hey there guys, I'm here with another prediction game video for SummerSlam 2014. This is Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, a match that's going to take place this Sunday at the event, and it is going to be a Lumberjack match. Now unfortunately there is no Lumberjack match type or option in 2K14, hopefully 2K15 has it, so I just made it a regular match. But this Sunday, it is going to be Lumberjack rules. Now, speaking of that match type, Lumberjack, the match that Dean Ambrose picked, I've got to say, I didn't see it coming. I didn't think he was going to pick Lumberjack as the matchup. So when it was announced, I was surprised, but also I've got to say, I was disappointed. I was really disappointed because I was really hoping for a street fight. And I'm not the biggest fan of, Lumberjack matches. I don't remember, a great Lumberjack match. But I can think of some great, street fights or no-holds-barred matches. So, like I said, I was pretty disappointed when I learned that it was going to be a Lumberjack match. But, I do believe that if there is going to be a great Lumberjack match, then Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose could very well have one. These two guys, they're both really good. And if, when put in a situation like this, in a Lumberjack match, I think they could give us a really good Lumberjack match. But anyways, this matchup, just like the Stephanie McMahon versus Brie Bella match, it's a hard match to predict. It could go either way. I could see Seth Rollins winning, I could see Dean Ambrose winning. I think a big part of it, being a difficult match to predict, is what happened maybe at Battleground. Because at Battleground, we all thought that there was going to be a one-on-one match, like a normal match between Rollins and Dean Ambrose. And for that match, I predicted Rollins as the winner. In most situations like this, the heel versus the face, the first match, or first one-on-one match in the feud, I go with the heel. And I went with the heel. I said, Seth Rollins was going to win the match. And technically, he did win the match. It was via forfeit, and Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins didn't really fight, didn't really have a match. He won via forfeit. So, they did brawl afterwards or whatever, but they didn't have an actual matchup. So, it kind of changes things a bit. Whereas before, I was like, alright, so, Seth Rollins wins the first match, and then Dean Ambrose most likely wins the second match at SummerSlam, and then they'll have, third match, maybe even fourth match. And now, with, what happened at Battleground, the thing is, do you count that Battleground victory for Seth Rollins as the first match of the feud, or not? So, I guess that is part of the reason why this is a difficult match. It's definitely not the only reason, though. Another reason would be the fact that it's a Lumberjack match. And you know how in Lumberjack matches, the heels, they always attack the faces when they're out of the ring. Now, what I could see is the Lumberjacks being handpicked by the Authority, where they're all heels. They're all after Ambrose, and whenever Ambrose gets thrown out the ring, they attack Ambrose. But if Seth Rollins gets thrown out the ring, they don't attack Seth Rollins. Now, like I said, I know when it comes to the heels in a Lumberjack match, that always happens, where the heels will attack the faces. But in this case, I could see it being, a Lumberjack match would entirely, with all of them being heels. And if the plan is for Rollins to win the match, then that would make sense. That would, explain why it ended up being a Lumberjack match. Because that way it gives Rollins a way to win the match while still making Ambrose look strong, because pretty much, Ambrose got screwed out of the matchup, or screwed out of the win, because of the Lumberjacks all being against him. But also, even if, it doesn't end up being all heels against Ambrose, when you think about it, the Lumberjack match itself, it makes sense in this situation because Ambrose doesn't want Rollins to get out of the ring. You know, it's to run away. And the whole point of a lumberjack match is for the superstars not to run away, because whenever they get outside the ring, they get thrown back in. But it could also be argued that Ambrose could have just picked a steel cage match and, you know, avoided all the other superstars and just have himself and Rollins locked in a cage. But then again, if this match extends all the way to Hell in a Cell, and they have a Hell in a Cell match, then I could see why they don't have a steel cage match at SummerSlam. Because then Rollins and Ambrose would have had two steel cage matches, or two, because, you know, one is a Hell in a Cell, one's a steel cage, but, you know, two types of cage matches, you know, pretty close to each other. SummerSlam in August, and Hell in a Cell is, I believe, in October. So I can understand it not being a steel cage match also, for that reason, if, you know, they're gonna have a Hell in a Cell match at Hell in a Cell. So the match type here is just another reason as to why this match is so unpredictable and difficult to predict, because it can favor Ambrose, and it could also favor Rollins. It really depends on what happens. Because on one hand, if it ends up being like the usual, you know, lumberjack match where it's half heels, half faces, and, you know, the lumberjacks do their job of, you know, putting the superstars back in the ring, then it favors Ambrose because Rollins can't run away. But if the lumberjacks are handpicked by the Authority to all go after Ambrose and attack Ambrose, then obviously that would favor Rollins. So far, after what I went over here, it seems like both these guys have a really good shot at winning this match, and it's a tough one to call. So what I did is I decided to do some more research. You see, as you all know, or may not know, Dean Ambrose got the opportunity to call the match type, to decide the match type for SummerSlam when he won the Beat the Clock challenge against Seth Rollins. It was Dean Ambrose versus Del Rio and Seth Rollins versus Rob Van Dam. Well, it was supposed to be Rollins versus Rob Van Dam, but it ended up being Rollins versus Heath Slater. Dean Ambrose won his Beat the Clock match in like 12 minutes or 15 minutes, something like that. It was like the longest Beat the Clock challenge match ever, but Seth Rollins lost his Beat the Clock challenge match. So Ambrose won, and of course he chose the lumberjack match. So what I did is I went over online and I checked the past Beat the Clock winners when it came to stipulations where whoever wins the Beat the Clock decides the match type he and his rival or opponent face off in. So the last one, the one before Ambrose and Rollins, was CM Punk and Ryback, when they were having their feud and CM Punk was a face and Ryback had just become a Paul Heyman guy. CM Punk won that Beat the Clock challenge, and the match type he chose was a Hell in a Cell 2-on-1 handicap match, CM Punk versus Ryback and Paul Heyman. What ended up happening? CM Punk won the handicap Hell in a Cell match. Before that, it was Wade Barrett and Randy. They were having a feud. Randy was the face. Randy won the Beat the Clock, and he chose a tables match. What ended up happening was Randy won the tables match. And before that, it was John Cena and Batista. John Cena won the Beat the Clock challenge, and the stipulation he chose was an I Quit match, and John Cena won the I Quit match. So as you can see, history shows that whoever wins these Beat the Clock challenges, where they get to pick the stipulation for their, matchup against their opponents, they end up winning the match. So I'm thinking history repeats itself this Sunday when Ambrose takes on Rollins in the match he picked due to winning the Beat the Clock challenge. Now on top of that, keep in mind, Rollins is the current Money in the Bank holder. And the past couple of years at SummerSlam, whoever's held the Money in the Bank briefcase and had a non-title singles match at SummerSlam, they've lost. An example of that, Daniel Bryan versus Barrett when Bryan was the Money in the Bank holder. Damien Sandow versus Cody when Damien Sandow had the briefcase. Dolph Ziggler versus Jericho when Dolph had the briefcase. They all lost. And I think that's going to be the case with Rollins as well this Sunday. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, as always, you can click that like button down below. I really appreciate it. With that said, I'm out. See ya.